On November 9th, 2019, I uploaded my original review of Luigi's Mansion 3 to my channel after beating the game for my first time. However, ever since I've made that video, I always feel like I could do better. I feel that things were missing that should have been mentioned in the video, which is why today, and I hinted at this before, I'm going to be reviewing Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Nintendo Switch. A few things to keep in mind: this will be going into spoiler territory, so if you haven't beaten the game yet, please do that before watching this video. This video will always be here for you to watch after playing the game. And also keep in mind that this video will get a bit long, considering I'm going to be going over everything I can about this game after playing the game 9 times and listening to other people's opinions online. This will be a bit lengthy, so grab your popcorn and whatever, and here it is, my ultimate review of Luigi's Mansion 3. The first thing to mention, of course, are the visuals. I'll just say it straight up, this game is just plain old beautiful. Seriously, it makes other Switch games look like crap with how everything looks so clean. Even though it uses the same cartoon style that Dark Moon also used, it's still amazing in its own way. Everything is just so good to look at, and you can't forget the game's animations, which make the game world feel so rich and alive. Everything is animated so naturally that it again makes the game look better than some of the best Switch games. Super Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, those games look like crap. This game has great animations. And not only that, but the game also runs at a very smooth 30 FPS at 1080p while docked and at 720p while in handheld mode, making the game feel that much more stable. Looking at you, Link's Awakening. Looking at you. However, even though the game looks great, there is one thing that, in my opinion, does kind of ruin it, and it's the fact that watermelons are in the game. Like, seriously, why are there so many watermelons in the game? Okay, that was a joke. That was actually a pretty stupid point, but the actual issue is the inconsistent lighting. There are times in the game where environments can be extremely dark, which looks so good, but there are also times where rooms are too bright, even while ghosts are present in the same room. It makes me wonder why Luigi even uses a flashlight when some of the rooms are bright. In the original game, Luigi's flashlight was a gameplay mechanic that could allow you to see the entire room given how dark the rooms were. But in this game, the flashlight, once again, is basically nothing more than just a prop for Luigi to hold. There is a brightness slider in the game, which does kind of affect the lighting, but it doesn't change much other than the overall game brightness. So, in a nutshell, the game has inconsistent lighting, which even hurts the overall atmosphere of the game. They could have made the game legitimately creepy if they kept the lights down a great amount so areas could feel somewhat more haunted. But the thing is though, I can get past that. I can honestly forgive the poor lighting because of how everything else looks so good. The lighting isn't necessarily the most important thing ever, and since the game just has such jaw-dropping visuals, animations, and consistent frame rate, I can easily forgive the lighting. Honestly, I just want to see that be improved for the next Luigi's Mansion game. So overall, the game is absolutely amazing to look at, minus a few exceptions. The next thing to mention is the game's story, and honestly, there isn't nearly as much to say here than I did for the visuals. I didn't necessarily expect a super deep story for this game, and hell, I even predicted the story, but overall, the game does have a much more interesting premise, as everyone gets invited to the hotel to have a maybe relaxing vacation, only for the tables to turn once the dark hour rises. Now, one thing very important to mention is the game's opening, and it is easily the best out of all of the Luigi's Mansion games. With the first game, while the opening was atmospheric and definitely set the tone of the game, it didn't really tell you everything. You didn't really know what would be happening on your first run. You wouldn't know why Luigi was walking in a forest in the first place to go to a mansion. You'd have to read the instruction manual for that. Yeah, remember those? In Dark Moon's opening, while it did tell you what was going on, it was just sort of But in Luigi's Mansion 3, you get to see everything unravel and even get to play in the opening, which really was something I wanted, and it's so cool. And I feel that the fake out was well done, even if the box art said otherwise. And the game just had such a very intense feeling once the lights go off and the night becomes eternity. So cool. Easily the best opening to any Luigi's Mansion game ever. However, there is one issue with the game story, and it's a lack of actual depth. For the most part, the game's story is very basic with not much going into it. Now compared to the first game, where the story was basic too. Luigi wins the mansion in a contest and has to rescue Mario from a haunted mansion that he accidentally entered. But what redeemed it was the amount of portrait ghosts that made the mansion feel so legitimately haunted and feel much more alive. While most of them don't really play much of a role in the main plot, they do add a lot of lore to the game. This is because of every portrait ghost having a biography of who they were on the Game Boy Horror, or you can even search their heart using the Game Boy camera to have an idea of what their personality is and what they think, even if they didn't ever speak any dialogue at all. On top of that, while the game did position them as mini-bosses, a good majority of the portrait ghosts don't even harm you. Rather, they just enjoy their afterlife and act as actual most humans do, which makes them feel so much more relatable and makes you feel pretty bad for capturing many of them. But in Luigi's Mansion 3, the game doesn't really have portrait ghosts, rather they have boss ghosts. Now, design-wise, they aren't that bad, and while there are less of them than in the original game, I honestly don't care that much considering it still has a good amount of them, and it does make them feel a lot more substantial. And for boss fights, they offer some of the greatest boss fights in Luigi's Mansion history. But the problem with them is that there are no biographies for the boss ghosts at all. Unless you count fan fiction, but just no. And none of the ghosts even have any lines of dialogue in the game, besides Helen Gravely, though she is the main antagonist so she kinda needs it, and Morty. Aside from that, none of the other boss ghosts have any lines of dialogue, a far cry from what the original game did. And all of the ghosts have such similar personalities. I've seen so many people online comment on how all the ghosts have unique personalities. I don't know where they're coming from. Aside from Morty, every other ghost uses the same cliche of just grunting at you and getting angry, and then you either engage them in the boss fight or they'll do something to slow down your progress. Now, I don't think every ghost had to talk or have a unique personality, but boy, the fact that they only used actual uniqueness with only one of the ghosts, it makes it very repetitive and just makes the game a lot less interesting. So overall, while the main plot is fine, the lack of unique personalities and biographies for the boss ghosts make the game's story feel so much more surface level than it really should, and that is a shame. The next thing, and possibly the most important thing about the game, is, well, the gameplay. Because while I did complain a lot about the story, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a game, and gameplay should always be first. Now, similar to the other Luigi's Mansion games, you catch ghosts with your vacuum cleaner while exploring every floor of the hotel, getting higher and higher. The new mechanics in the poltergeist include the slam, as while you're sucking up a ghost, you can now slam the ghost around to damage them, and can even slam it into other ghosts to deal damage to the other ghosts. Now, I've seen a lot of people complain about this, and they say that this makes the combat feel very simplistic and too easy. But here's the thing, you don't have to use the slam. It is an option. You don't have to use it. You could just suction up the ghost just like you did back in the original game. And not only that, I feel like the game was purposely designed to use the slam mechanic. Many of the ghosts this time around have much more health than they did in the previous two games, with even the low-level ghosts having 100 health points. And while it does suction down the health rather fast, they definitely do take much more time to catch, so I feel like the game was purposely designed around this slam mechanic, and I feel like it was designed in such a way to make it work. But again, if you don't like the game being too easy, you do not have to use the slam mechanic at all. The next maneuver is the suction shot, which fires off a plunger, can help getting around much more easy, which was actually shown in the Simon Belmont revealed trailer for Smash Bros. Ultimate, which was shown before the first reveal trailer of Luigi's Mansion 3, so yeah. Honestly, I don't have too much to say about that, it's fine. And there's also the burst, which can help you get above shockwaves and push ghosts away from you to make it a little more fair and more manageable to catch ghosts. Because there may be times where so many ghosts are on you and you'll have to just risk taking damage. Now you have much more manageability and whatnot. And basically, Luigi can finally jump in Luigi's Mansion. I don't know why he couldn't jump in the previous two games. Okay, he could jump in Dark Moon, but that was just when he was dodging. But now he can actually jump at any time, which, thank God, because, I mean, seriously, Luigi's known for his high jumps, so I don't know why they never really had this before. Another new invention is Luigi, who can be released from the Poltergeist jail cell, that is, to help you with some of the puzzles. Now, on the outside, it does kind of look like that this would mean that the game is much more of a co-op experience than single player, which would definitely be a huge issue. You switch between Luigi and Luigi to complete various puzzles, and I can definitely see people thinking that this is forced co-op and that this could ruin what should have been a single player game. However, aside from like a few times throughout the game, the boiler works, Luigi really isn't forced too much to make the game feel more multiplayer focused, and he can be used in very unique ways for very interesting puzzles, making him a welcome addition. And catching ghosts isn't the only thing you do, you also have to solve, like I said before, various puzzles to traverse the floors in order to obtain the elevator buttons, and boy is the level design good. I will admit, it isn't necessarily as good as Dark Moon. I think Dark Moon had better puzzles. They required more thinking. Many of the puzzles in this game can be ridiculously easy, but some of them are well designed, such as the movie floor. Getting the megaphone back is really interesting. You really have to use the TVs in such a cool way. And honestly, did kind of stump me on my first time. You really have to think about how to do it. And all the puzzles suit the areas that they're present on. Now, while the gameplay is fun, there is the fact that it can get pretty repetitive after a while, and it does not help that there are not many common ghosts. Only 4 to be exact, which makes it even more repetitive. And hell, most of the time you'll just fight these blue ghosts, and that's practically it. There's the red hammer ghosts, which just are a bit of a pain to catch. The slinker purple ghosts, which I aren't too bad, but eh. And then there's these oozer yellow ghosts, which are basically just worse versions of the hiders. And that's basically it. Those are all the common ghosts in the game. I don't know why there's so few of them, but that really sucks, and that just makes the combat quite repetitive. But I don't know. There's just something about busting ghosts that just makes me feel good, so I never really got tired of it. So overall, while the gameplay can get repetitive, it is easily a lot of fun and still can be engaging. But none of that really matters if the controls suck, and thankfully, the controls don't suck at all. Honestly, I don't even have much to say about them. They work. And that's pretty much it. Everything is laid out fine, so the controls for the game are really good too. The other more important things about in the video games industry is the soundtrack. In Luigi's Mansion 3, it's alright. It's fine. Okay, the game's soundtrack really isn't that bad, but the main problem is that a good amount of the music is just so forgettable. A thing Next Level tried doing with this game was making it more reliant on ambience, and I do like that idea. I feel that it does make the game feel a lot more atmospheric, and it does make the game, again, feel rich and alive. But this means that the music must have been more of a secondary thing, as it just feels a little more subpar. Again, the music isn't terrible, it does have great music, but it is just nothing compared to Dark Moon or even the first game. The first game didn't even have that many unique songs, as it would mainly just play the main theme over and over, but at least that main theme was good and it really made the game feel atmospheric. Luigi's Mansion 3 soundtrack, on the other hand, just isn't nearly as good. Not even as good as Dark Moon's, which is just surprising, but whatever. One of the big things about this game is the amount of content that they offer. Me and many others bought this game for $60, and for $60, you do get a good amount of content. The main story is roughly around 9 to 10 hours to complete on one playthrough, which is definitely long enough for Luigi's Mansion game, although there are points where the game does feel like padding. Polterkitty. The game does still feel just right lengthwise, and once you beat the story mode, you get absolutely nothing for beating the game. No post-game content at all. There's not even a boss rush mode, which is really weird considering that, like I said before, this game has some of the best bosses in the series. Hell, one of the selling points of the Luigi's Mansion 3DS remake was the inclusion of a boss rush mode, so why is it not here? And even if you open your last save, it will just restart you right at the final boss. And while I'm on the topic of that, the finale of the story mode is alright. The build up to the final boss is easily amazing, though I feel like the King Boo fight just isn't the best. Just being a bit more bland version of Dark Moon's King Boo fight. And the ending, while it is nicely animated, it just doesn't have the same awesome feeling that Dark Moon's ending had, or the sad emotional feeling that the original game had. And you also have rankings as well, but the game never really tells you that you should save your money for the end, so every time you purchase something from the shop, and that's another thing, the shop, if you purchase something from there, you're basically punishing yourself from actually getting a good ranking, because the game never really gives you much of a heads up that there's going to be a ranking at the end of the game. So, yeah, I don't know why they did that. With that aside though, the story mode really isn't enough to justify the $60 price tag, considering, again, like I said before, it usually would take 9 or 10 hours. And while you can replay it over and over, it definitely isn't enough. But there are two other modes in the game, the first being Scare Scraper. This mode is probably the best reason to play the game over and over, as it's just infinitely replayable as you play with others online or with some of your friends or some people near you to clear an entire tower of ghosts. I will say that it definitely left out options that aren't even present in 3 but were in Dark Moon, such as difficulty slider, which is just weird. But overall, Scare Scraper is easily a lot of fun, and the online works. Honestly, I haven't even run into that many connection issues. Maybe a few things from here and there, but the online works. Probably one reason to get Nintendo Switch Online, one of the few games that actually works quite well. There is another mode as well, which is Scream Park, and honestly, I haven't really played much of it. I've only really played it by myself, as I haven't even played it at all with other people. But from what I've played, I mean, it's cool that it's there, but just lacks a huge amount of depth and is almost nothing more than just a few mini-games. Mini-games that could just be in a Mario Party game. Not only that, but there's also a multiplayer mode in the story mode in the form of co-op in the first place, and there's also Scare Scraper, so I don't know why they really had to include another multiplayer mode, let alone a mode that really isn't even that great in the first place. But whatever. It's still cool that it's there. So overall, the game's amount of content is definitely there, though it does lack a good amount of replayability when playing story mode, as it just isn't as replayable as the first game was. But other than that, I feel the game does have enough to justify that $60 price tag. Finally, in conclusion, this game is just so good. Even after all the complaining that I did, this game still gave me what I was looking for in a 2019 Luigi's Mansion game. And I've said before, this game does have a great amount of problems. No game is perfect, and this game is the same way. But a lot of the complaints that I said, while I made them sound bad, they aren't really that big in the first place. And for me, they didn't really take away from the main experience. They're just little annoyances that happen from now and then. If I was able to get past that many issues, that right there should show how amazing this game truly is. This might be a bit of a biased opinion, but on my scale of 0 to 10, I give this game a 9.5 out of 10, and is my personal favorite Luigi's Mansion game out of the entire series.